feature presentation.
He'll be fine on the mountain.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series. Watson, touchdown. Hunter Renfrow. He got him, and it's all over. Coastal Carolina rules the roost. They win the championship. And South Carolina has won the national championship.
The Senegal baseball team has done it again, but this time the Bulldogs beat one of the top teams in the country. They are giant killers. Get the ball and Bennett and dives.
Gamecocks are in the Final Four.
All right, greetings and a good Wednesday afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and driven by our friends and yours at Stokes Volkswagen. Find them at stokesvw.com. You can find us on the JB and Goldwater app. If you haven't downloaded that, you should. You can watch and listen to our program daily for free, and you can always go back and check us out if you missed something. Across all social media platforms, follow us at JB and Goldwater. Individually, it's me at Sports Media JV, and that's Darren at Darren Goldwater. 843-321-8893 is our phone number. It is also our text line, and it is available for all of you, but not for long. Breaking news today out of Columbia, South Carolina, first reported by the BigSpur.com's John Whittle, is that pitching coach Skylar Meade is departing the Gamecock baseball program, and so is assistant coach Trip Couch. Skylar will leave to become a head coach, and Tripp will leave to become an assistant coach. He's headed to Arizona. Skylar appears headed for Troy University. I also this morning confirmed via two sources that this is true. And I'll also say that just full transparency here, I've not spoken directly to Skylar. Have not received a message back from him just yet. However, it has been confirmed by two sources right in the mix of it. So we're going to talk to John about that here in just a little bit, and kind of look at the direction that this may go to replace both of these coaches. We do have JC Shurburtt for a full hour today at 12:30 until 1:30. We also have our It's Time for Carolina Football mini-series coming up at 1:30 with Keith Allsep. So a lot of Gamecock stuff around here today. But with JC, we will mix in a bunch of other things. We do have some all-star stuff to get to, Darren. It could change quickly with what we do around here. But the breaking news today in the Palmetto State is that Skylar Meade and Trip Couch will no longer be Gamecocks. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. First thought is not shocking, right? We expected there to be some type of movement amongst the program, at least inside of it, players, coaches, whatever it may be. And the second thought there would be, hey, congratulations to Skylar, who's been an awesome friend of the show. You've been close with him for a while. I've only talked to him through the show, but he's been awesome with us. He's been awesome for all of you out there who watch and listen to this program. And good for him, man. It's his first head coaching job in D1 baseball, and he's going to a great conference. I've been on campus at Troy. It's a good facility out there, and there's a chance for future success. I'd imagine he wants to be a head coach in the future. That's why he took the gig. So congratulations, man. That's a big deal.
Yeah, first and foremost, a personal endorsement always for Skylar Meade, a stand-up dude. He's been on our program week in and week out for 2 years. Prior to that, when I was at ESPN, I can speak to this part myself. He was on my program all the time. On ESPN radio as well in the Low Country. So we've gotten to know each other very well over the years. Very proud of Skylar and absolutely wish him the best. There's no doubt. And I tell you now that the guys that play for him are so proud of him. So that is a really great honor for him, and good luck to Trip Couch as well. Now, where does this go is what people want to know. I see Adam's comment there. Hire Scott Wingo. Well, not to coach the pitchers, but certainly Scott Wingo might be a guy who would be in contention to replace Trip Couch. Again, we have John Whittle coming up in a few minutes. He does have a report that is out there on the Big Spur. I think he actually just put it up, so you can go to thebigspur.com and read that, and we'll obviously have him recap so much of that here in just a little bit. I'll throw a couple of other little nuggets out there that I got this morning from the pitching side. I have nothing from the Trip Couch side. This is from the pitching side. I would say keep an eye on Matt Williams. And Matt Williams, the guy who played baseball at Spartanburg Methodist. He's been around the state a long time. He's not currently. He's at Liberty. But he played at SMC. He coached for Coach Wallace up there. He coached at UNC Wilmington as a pitching coach. And he is now at Liberty. And his bio kind of speaks for itself. He's also coached in some summer leagues and things like that. So keep an eye on him. I don't have any insight into it necessarily, but I did have somebody this morning say to keep an eye on him, and the person who told me that would be a worthy source. The other, I'd say, keep an eye on him putting his name in the hat, and we'll see what happens here. And that's Blake Cooper at the Citadel. Blake Cooper, of course, was a star for the Gamecocks on the mound. He was a star in the 2010 World Series. And he, even though if you go look at the numbers at the Citadel, their pitching staff over the last couple of years have been a struggle, you got to dig deeper into that and figure out why. It's not because he can't coach or he can't recruit and things like that. They've had some turnover and it's been hard to kind of get kids there. So, I don't know necessarily if that would be the road that they would take or not. Let's remember that Ray Tanner is not the head coach at South Carolina. Mark Kingston is. Mark does not necessarily have those direct ties to the history of the program, although he welcomes his guys with these guys with open arms. They all know Mark really well. So we'll see. I'm not going to speak for any of them. I'm not going to speak for exactly how this is going to work. But those are two names that popped up just a little bit ago on my radar, and I would say to keep an eye on them moving forward. And John is going to join us in a couple of minutes, Darren, and I'm sure he's going to add to that list. He'll lengthen it tremendously.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. And credit to him. He's the one who broke this story. You brought up an interesting point right there, because it makes all the sense in the world if you throw out a name that has a tie, not just to South Carolina, but some of the great memories and times of Gamecocks baseball. But this is Mark Kingston's hire. There are guys throughout his career I'm sure he feels very comfortable with. So does he go with one of them? Does he go with advice from someone else and then a subsequent interview and feeling comfortable with someone from the Gamecock family? It's an interesting dynamic. There's really no right answer right now because you have to see how it's going to play out. But it's an interesting dynamic, at least to pay attention to. Is it going to be someone of Gamecock lore, of Gamecock recognition, or is it someone who Kingston has a long history with and a tie with? And this just happened a half hour ago, so it's not like either one of us has dove into the background of that.
Yeah, it needs to be the best guy for the job.
Yep.
If he played at Carolina or if he didn't play at Carolina. I mean, Skylar didn't, and Skylar turned out to be pretty damn good,
right?
For this job here. So, Jerry Myers never played at South Carolina. Mark Calvey didn't play at South Carolina, and they're excellent pitching coaches, and all of them have been pitching coaches at South Carolina and left to become head coaches. Jerry Myers left for Old Dominion. Mark Calvey is still the head coach at South Alabama. I think we all saw what just happened down in Gainesville, Florida this year. So, these guys, this job as the pitching coach specifically at South Carolina is a great job, and it has a track record of helping you get where you want to go if that's your destination. So more to this story, hopefully here with John Whittle, who first broke it this morning on thebigspur.com. John, thanks for jumping in on short notice, my friend. How are you? And what a busy day all of a sudden.
Absolutely. Glad to be on. And, all this stuff has come together here pretty quickly. So it's been definitely a busy day.
John will be followed up by his fearless leader, as we'll call him, JC Shurburtt with thebigspur.com. But John, I've passed along some of the information that I've gotten this morning. You have a bunch, and I think just a little bit ago, I think I just saw it a few minutes ago, maybe 11 minutes ago. Okay. You put a column up on the bigspur.com, so we want to encourage people to go check that out. But my understanding, John, is that Skylar Mead has been a hot commodity. We'll start with him in the offseason. There has been a little bit of a process probably behind the scenes on this. I'm not sure how much you're going to get into that. But nonetheless, he is moving on as a head coach. So fill us in on what you know and where this may take us next for the Gamecocks pitching coach position.
Yeah, he has been kind of a hot name out there. He interviewed for another head coaching position earlier this offseason and, finished runner-up for that job. And, there's no prize for runner-up in a coaching search, but he was one of 4 finalists for this Troy position and was on campus yesterday meeting with Troy officials. And he is still on campus today, and there'll be a press conference later today. So all of this came together pretty quickly. There was, a conversation with last week between Skylar and Troy, and you never know exactly where it's going to go. But they had several other candidates that they went through, and Skylar was there on Tuesday to go through that process, and they offered him the job late last night. So he's accepted it, and now South Carolina will started search for a pitching coach, and there's several good ones out there, several good ones in the area, and I do expect Mark Kingston to move quickly to fill that role, and as well as Trip Couch departing for Arizona, because this is an important time for baseball programs right now. It's kind of in the throes of recruiting season. Big tournaments are going on right now, and players are playing all over the place. So not only do recruits and current players want to know who their coach is going to be, but they also are continuing to recruit. So you need to get guys in pretty quickly, and Mark Kingston realizes that for sure.
What about you? You mentioned some of the guys currently on the team, John. I'm not going to ask you to go through name by name necessarily. South Carolina just had, I think, maybe the second or third most drafted college players from their program across the country. A tremendous accomplishment for the Gamecock baseball program. But the large majority of those young men are pitchers, and maybe a couple of them are having a difficult time deciding whether they should go play professional baseball or whether they should return to school, and they've got a little over a couple of weeks to make that decision. How important is this time for them, and important in the timeline that Mark Kingston has to find a new coach?
Well, none of those guys who are drafted really have decisions to make. Those guys are all signing to go play pro ball, whether it's your Daniel Lloyd, whether it's your Andrew Peters, Brandon Jordan, whoever else, Drew Baker, a recruit. Now excuse me, not all of them. Julian Bosnick is one who is, who was selected, who I guess has a decision to make. I would be really, really surprised if he makes a decision to sign with his professional team. But getting somebody who he can be introduced to, who he can become familiar with before he has to make that decision will be important. But Bosnick is really the only one who has the decision to make. Everybody else, I think, is going to be headed on, and including Drew Baker, a signee who was selected on day 3 of the draft and has already agreed to terms with the Phillies. So, Bosnick's really the only one. But at the end of the day, I would be surprised if he left. And these guys got to realize that when you're playing in pro ball, you have more. Sometimes you have more than one pitching coach a year, let alone a change here going into your last season. So, I don't think that's going to be a tremendous factor, although I know Skylar and Julian have a great relationship. But, I think Bosnick will ultimately be back in South Carolina next year.
John Whittle with thebigspur.com. John, there obviously now is an interesting time to talk about it, because since Shane Beamer has been back in Columbia with the football program, this whole welcome home campaign has kind of taken off. And I'm sure that many fans are wondering whether South Carolina, Mark Kingston, obviously his decision, may decide to stay within the boundaries of the Garnet and Black for some or maybe one or both of their next hires, to kind of throw the names out there that I know of. You may know of more, whom are coaching collegiate baseball at this point in time. Blake Cooper at the Citadel as a pitching coach. Nolan Belcher is a head coach out there. Phil Disher is in college baseball as an assistant coach. I think he's up at maybe Navy or something now. Scott Wingo, another big name. He's at Notre Dame. We just saw what the Irish did. We got all the boys up at North Greenville, Landon Powell, John Kootlangus, Trey Dyson, and there might be some others out there that I'm missing. I'm sure there are. So that group that I just gave you, what do you know about interest from either the Gamecock side or their side in maybe coming on board as a coach in the program?
Well, I just put out a list of names on the Big Spur board on who I kind of expect to be in there. And of those guys you mentioned, the only person who I have in that list is Scott Wingo. And, even then, I don't know, apart from his South Carolina roots, how attractive that hire can be. When you're hired as a recruiting coordinator, and that's basically what this position is a recruiting coordinator to fill Trip Couch's spot. You really need some experience in recruiting. And while he's at Notre Dame, he's also the volunteer assistant, so he can't be out on the road recruiting. He was a volunteer at Jacksonville. He couldn't be out on the road recruiting. He was a student assistant at North Greenville. I love Scott Wingo to death, but and certainly respect what he's doing, but he's still young in the business and has no experience in that realm to come on to South Carolina's coaching staff. So, I get the how sentimental that would be for a lot of folks to bring him back in, but I think it's a little bit too early for him right now to come into that spot. So I think he's somebody who certainly deserves a phone call from Mark Kingston and a conversation, but I'd be really surprised at the end of the day if that's the hire. There's some other guys on my list who have South Carolina connections in terms of the state, not necessarily the program. If you're looking at a state kind of tie, I look at Matt Williams at Liberty, who's the pitching coach up there.
Yeah.
He's a Lancaster native, spent years at SMC developing pitchers at that program, had great staffs at UNC Wilmington. He had the pitcher of the year in that conference 3 out of the 5 years he was at UNC Wilmington, who's done a really nice job up at Liberty. I think he's a guy you really look out for from a pitching coach standpoint, who's got ties to the state. But as far as guys who with direct ties to South Carolina, it's really hard for me to see any of those guys being really likely candidates at this point.
This couldn't have come as a surprise because, as you mentioned already, Skylar Meade had interviewed and came close on another job. So the staff, Mark Kingston in particular, has known that this could happen. I'm not sure about the couch part of the whole thing. What about the timing of all this? Is this potentially a good thing for South Carolina? And then again, the timing of all of this, where does it put them?
Yeah, I mean, the timing is a little bit later than usual, I guess. But, the coaching carousel seemed like it started to spin a little bit later this year than usual in terms of jobs coming open. But, sometimes these, especially the mid-major jobs, they come open a little bit later. But Troy is a really nice job out there. They're paying a good amount of money. It's a place where you can win. Mm-hmm. It is a place that is invested in facilities, and from what I understand, they're going to put about $10 million more into that program from a facility standpoint with the hiring of Skylar. So, he's going into a really good situation there, in a place where you can win, in a place where you can be successful and taken care of. So, I feel happy for him from that regard. But, just from a timing standpoint for South Carolina, you're still a really high value job in the country. As I think you were touching on as we came on, there's been some good history with pitching coaches here at South Carolina, and some guys moving on to good things. And I do think that there will be some assistants out there with ties who are good, who will certainly pay attention. And, there's some good names out there, and I think South Carolina will be an attractive job for several people, for several good candidates. And I think Mark Kingston will have the opportunity to hire some really good guys.
I think he absolutely will. John, I know you got to go. Final question, 10-second answer, yes or no, if you want to make it that. Do you anticipate any more changes on the Gamecock staff?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, I can't rule it out. I mean, obviously, there's really only two other names out there. Mike Curran moved from an off-field role into an on-field role into an off-field role. And I know he likes what he's doing, but I also know from previous conversations that he likes coaching as well and being on the field. So if an opportunity comes up for him, maybe, and Stuart Lake is in that volunteer role, and I feel like if he were going to make a move, then that would have already happened. But I'm not going to 100% rule it out, but I don't think that anything is necessarily coming about with those guys right now.
First reported by John Whittle of thebigspur.com. As always, he's all over it, and he'll continue to be. You need to head to thebigspur.com. If you don't have a membership, you might want to get one. Gamecock baseball, a bunch of names in the draft, expecting many, if not all of them, to sign. We'll see what that looks like, and obviously now a couple of coaching changes to cover. John will have it all for you. Again, thebigspur.com. Hey, bud, look, I really appreciate it. You said, I've got 10. We got to 12 minutes. We stretched you long. We'll pay you some overtime dollars. Thank you, my friend.
Yeah, just double my pay and we'll be good.
Got it.
I'll pull it out of JC's for you. How about that?
All right, appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me.
Later.
John Whittle with thebigspur.com. 12:22 on a Wednesday afternoon, July the 14th. And so that is where all of this is kind of shifted, is that Gamecock baseball is certainly looking for a couple of new coaches. I anticipate it'll probably be fairly quickly. I don't know that I want to go as far, Darren, as saying that I know that is going to be the case, and here's why I know that, or anything like that. But I think if you read between the lines, you could probably figure out this ain't gonna take a very long time.
It shouldn't take a long time for two reasons. Number one, where we are in the recruiting cycle. And number two, this isn't a surprise. This is not something that has caught Kingston off guard. This is not something that has caught Ray Tanner off guard. So if this happens in a time now where we are, you got to move pretty quickly. And every coach has a list already. You got to. That's the job of a head coach. I mean, you got to be ready to replace your guys. And he's had whatever the significant amount of time is, he's had that amount of time to be working on it already. If Meade was a finalist already in another job and then has gone through the process this time, and I'm sure the couch thing didn't come up and just kind of bite him either. My guess is this was expected. So my guess is it moves fast.
Yeah, no, well, and we knew maybe a week ago that Coach Couch had interviewed at Arizona. He's known that coach. It's a new coach out there. Obviously, Jay Johnson's the new head coach at LSU. He's known the new guy for a long time. So that was a possibility. And I'll just say, I'm not stunned at all by the Skyler news. But from a personal standpoint, I'm not shy in saying that I do have a personal relationship with him. I think everybody probably has figured that out by now. Very proud of him. Really, really proud. And to the idiot that always only comments on Wednesdays when JC is here, let me tell you something. You don't know what you're talking about. Coach Kingston did not encourage either one of them, and they're not losers, to seek other employment. That's not what happened. And if you think that it's a great day for Gamecock baseball because these two gentlemen are gone, let me ask you where Gamecock baseball would have been this June without Skyler Meade as their pitching coach. They would have been sitting their ass at home on the couch, okay? So from here on out, this guy is done, Darren. We don't respond to him anymore. He can comment all he wants to.
It's fair to believe this is good for Carolina baseball. That's perfect.
Yeah, well, I mean, but it's idiotic, actually, because I don't understand how somebody can look at one of the best pitching jobs in the country and say that it's a great day that the guy that led that group, who just had 8 dudes drafted, or 6 dudes drafted, it's a good day for that.
Yeah, look, we're not here to sling personal insults, and we'll stay away from any of that stuff. And that's in reference to something.
Well, it's my show, so I'll say personal things if I want to. I'm not going to listen to stuff like that. That's just.
I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to him.
No, I know you're not. I'm not talking about you. That's just ridiculous. I mean, stuff like that is just ridiculous. Those are the keyboard warriors that have no guts to say things like that to people's faces. You got something to say? Pick up the phone and call us. How about that? 843-321-8893. There you go. There's your phone number. But anyways, moving on now. JC Shurburt's ahead. Keith Allsep is ahead as well, Darren. The All-Star game is behind us. How about Guerrero? One of 3 father-son duos to hit a home run in the All-Star game. Griffey and Bonds are the others. This kid is special. I tell you what, man, you mentioned it yesterday. And I agree with you. It's the best All-Star game, first of all. But, like, the production of it is awesome. I mean, listening to the players talk and, to the Tatis conversation and Freddie and those guys, I mean, I think that's what I wish you could do that more throughout the season, but you can't. These guys got to play. They can't wear earpieces. This is an exhibition for the most part, but it makes it so enjoyable to listen to those guys. So, it wasn't like some walk-off home run to win it or anything like that, but I thought it was a great night for baseball.
Look, it started a couple of years ago in an All-Star game. Then they started messing with it a bit in spring training. I'm talking about announcers with the ability to talk to guys while they're actually out there playing. They utilized it a little bit early on in the COVID stuff. I think that was when they were just getting back into their whatever the second spring training thing was. And then again, for the All-Star game, it's just a perfect opportunity because it's an exhibition game, right? So you're talking to guys like Tatis when the home run goes 460 directly over his head, and the reaction is priceless, right? You're talking to Freddie Freeman when Aaron Judge walks and he's afraid of looking like a midget, and then all of a sudden ball bounces over Freeman's head while they're talking to Freddie Freeman. Yeah, it brings a fun element into a broadcast that should be fun. And it is fun despite the fact that it's the only All-Star game that guys are genuinely trying their hardest, right? You're not hitting people at full speed in football and hockey. You're not playing defense at all in the NBA. Like, that's just a chuck it around, not even a street yard game. This is straight up pitchers trying to get you out and you're trying to get a hit. Like, you're playing the game. So it's fun. It's fun to watch. I had a great night personally last night with the whole thing. I nailed a couple of things, including picking that Vlad Jr. would in fact hit a home run, but the game itself was good.
Dude. Oh, you mean picking like on mybookie.ag?
Yes, picking certain things like that. I had, assuming that's what I'm talking about. I assumed.
Yeah, I guess we are.
I assumed that there would be fewer than 2.5 runs, hits, and errors combined in the first inning. I assumed that it would be scoreless after the first inning. I also assumed that if somebody was going to hit a home run, it'd be Vlad Guerrero Jr. So I assumed a lot of things well.
You did. That's great. Yeah, I just watched the game and had fun. Yeah, I ate my barbecue, and that was all she wrote. So
it was fun. It was fun.
Yeah, it was, and I kept thinking about what Gene Sapikoff said yesterday about Shohei Ohtani, and he was trying to think in all of his life of covering baseball, the second most exciting player. So I thought that was really neat. It was a great night for baseball. It really was. How about the uniforms, real quick? You a fan?
I'm not as against them as everybody else is, but no. I mean, it's the All-Star game in baseball. It's part of the cool thing is all the colors and seeing all of the uniforms and all of the logos. And so no, don't do that again.
I tell you what, I didn't hate them, but I would have rather just seen, if they're going to do that, I'm okay. Red and white or red and blue or white and blue like they did last night, whatever. But put the actual team logo on there. Just put the team logo. I don't care what the color is. Just put the team logo on and let them wear their hats, maybe. And then if you want to do those type jerseys or whatever, I mean, I didn't really
players
care.
hated them. I mean, they're like pajamas seem to be be a pretty popular definition or interpretation of it. Players hated him. I don't think we'll see him again.
Probably not. Yeah, if the players don't want it, generally they're not going to get it. There is some other news from baseball yesterday as well. It looks like no more 7-inning doubleheaders as part of the next collective bargaining agreement, and no more starting runners on second. I mean, that's about as dumb as the comment we saw earlier on our show. So thank God. Yeah, let's save baseball. All right, we got to hit a timeout. When we return, J.C. Shurburtt, owner of thebigspur.com, he'll pop in. Carolina has a new commitment, but that commitment has not made it known publicly yet. Some of us know. Wink, wink. Carolina also has a transfer to talk about, and we got a lot more to get into right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road with exciting news. It's springtime and we're playing ball. Most dealerships don't have any inventory, but at Stokes Volkswagen we do. So we're playing ball on every new Volkswagen in stock. Every new Volkswagen available with zero down. Qualified buyers can sign and drive with interest-free financing for 60 months. Remember, Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road is the fastest, easiest way to sell your car and get the most money for your trade. Plus, we'll take any trade in any condition, paid off or not. Is your credit in a slump?
Strike two.
If you've got $500 down and you make at least $2,000 per month, our lenders can get you approved. So if you want to strike out, that's okay. But if you want to hit a home run and save on a new Volkswagen, come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road or StokesVW.com.
$1,666 per month per $1,000 borrowed for 60 months at 0% APR with zero down. Plus tax tag. Includes $499.50 administration fee. Subject to VCI credit approval. Expires month end.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
Shrimping season's back. That means local caught shrimp. That's right. Local caught shrimp back on the menu at the Dog and Duck. All three locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road, now featuring once again local caught hand-breaded shrimp, plus other daily specials like the Game Day Burger every Wednesday, Rib Night on Friday, rotating taps all the time, and all the TVs you can possibly imagine for whatever you want to watch. The Dog and Duck in Bell Hall, Park West, and on Clements Ferry Road.
Your online radio, the new online radio that makes you happy.
I got honeybee beating on my screen door. I got a little buzz in my head. So
Please, please.
cause we come from a long line of sinners like me. La-di-da, la-di-da, la-di-da.
And you were listening to the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online.
Don't cry for me when I'm gone. Just put a quarter in the jukebox and sing me back home.
I mean, it's my favorite time. JC, from here on out, when you jump in, you need to come in with the fist pumps, okay? Oh, there, you can hear me. You're just ignoring me. Don't ignore me. I mean, look, I know you said you needed to lose weight, but how much weight do you really need to lose? I mean, you're looking like the Slender Man.
Well, I hope so. I mean, because I thought I was getting kind of a fat face for a while, so that's good. And all you guys see is my face, but I make sure the camera angles are flattering when I do this show and all that. But I've lost some. I'm actually that's 22 pounds so far, so that's not bad. I got 17 more days till I hit Myrtle, so hoping to maybe get in about 10 more before I go down there shirtless and tan the ham, so to speak.
All right, that's what I'm talking
There's
about.
a ton of like really good looking things around Myrtle Beach. You might
That's what everybody tells me. They're like, God,
better just not doing this.
You're getting in shape to go to Myrtle, and I'm like, yeah, well, maybe I want to stand out. I'm not sure. So so it's been a good little run here.
Well, you're doing a great job, man. Really proud of you. Glad you're on your diet. Maybe you're slipping on the bourbon a little bit. We'll get you back into it. No problem. Football season's right around the corner.
No doubt.
All right, real quick, JC, I do want to get to football with you. Got a lot to get to in football, but the news of the day is your unbelievable colleague, John Whittle, first reported is out of Carolina baseball, and that is that Skylar Meade and Trip Couch are headed elsewhere. Skylar is going to become a head coach for the very first time in college baseball. An outstanding human being, an unbelievable pitching coach. And Troy, I tell you what, boys and girls, the Yellowhammer State better watch out, because you got Mark Calvey, former pitching coach at Carolina, down at South Alabama. Now you got Skylar at Troy. They can both recruit the hell out of you. They develop arms. All you got to do is look at the draft. Look what just happened. Look what they did all year long. These guys are good. Auburn and Alabama better be careful, because these dudes, they know what they're doing, and that state's only so big, they're going to steal kids. But, real quick comments and thoughts on the recent changes, JC.
Well, I mean, those Alabama schools that aren't Alabama and Auburn, they all have a shot in different, I guess, forms of athletics. They're all actually – they always have a chance in football. I mean, South Alabama is sort of a new program that, and of course, my guy Jake Bentley is going to be the quarterback down there this year, so I'll be watching them. But, Troy and UAB, both. UAB's quite a story in football. And then in basketball, UAB's had some great teams over the years. And Troy is a tough out in football. A lot of times they're on the Gamecock schedule this season. Baseball, I think it's kind of the same way. That state produces a lot of athletes in that sport. As we all know, in the sport of baseball, 11.7 scholarships. So sometimes maybe you can offer a guy a lot, more money to come to Troy, whereas he may get like point whatever at Bama or Auburn, and you can get some good players. It's very similar to the situations at College of Charleston, Charleston Southern, Coastal, Winthrop, those schools around the state of South Carolina. So, it's a good gig. I think that the fact that Skylar Meade has gotten a head coaching job should not be surprising. No. I think it was trending that direction. Didn't hear the Troy thing until it happened, really. But that's a pretty good little athletic department down there, and they got a lot of pride and they got a lot of fans, and I think that's a good fit. And then as far as Couch going to Arizona, John Whittle, of course, reported that a few days back that he was out there meeting. I guess the new Arizona coach has a relationship with him. And we all know, covering the South Carolina Gamecocks, what kind of program the Arizona Wildcats have just about on an annual basis. And it is a job where, like a lot of the Pac-12 teams in baseball, they aren't up every year, but they're up most of the years. And whether it's been Andy Lopez out there or Jay Johnson, who just got the LSU job, Arizona's had, championship competing teams out there in Tucson. So good opportunity, and an opportunity now for Mark Kingston to retool his staff. I said here on the show, and John Whittle knows more than I do about it, obviously, but I said just from a broad perspective, it was a good year. The standards probably were not met as far as this program at South Carolina goes, because they got, knocked out in the regionals at home, and that doesn't happen a whole lot. And, I think Mark Kingston even said it after the year. It's been a good season, but we want great ones around here. And so it may be a chance to kind of reset some things and maybe go out and make some new hires, get some new voices in the dugout, and to help Mark Kingston sort of move along and continue to move this program in a positive direction.
Yeah, and the Meade loss, though, we do need to monitor this, because remember, everything has changed in college athletics. You can just transfer now.
Yeah,
you can leave, and Skylar is the lead recruiter on some exceptional talent that is coming to school obviously they wouldn't have even sniffed the postseason without his leadership in the pitching department. So we got to keep an eye on this. There are probably going to be some fairly or decently quick moves made to fill both of those roles, and we'll see what happens moving forward. But nonetheless, congratulations to both of them. JC, let's get to football. We are on commitment watch, as reported this weekend by you mentioned this a few weeks ago. Shane's doing it a hell of a lot different than everybody else. He lets you know when one's coming home, and then we just all kind of sit around and wait until they announce it. But one's apparently out there, and so when are we expected to get a public announcement from this young man?
I said, gosh, when we found out about it on Sunday, probably Wednesday, maybe even Thursday. It's a video situation, and as we all know, when you're doing those videos, sometimes when it goes into production, it takes a little while. They're putting all the effects on it and stuff like that, and we've seen that happen before. So we'll see. I would think by tomorrow, but I don't want to guarantee that because
come on.
I hate it when you say, it's tomorrow and everybody's excited. And then, I guess it's like 8:00 tomorrow night. They're like,
Haven't you ever watched Tommy Boy? Don't you know what a guarantee means?
It's a guarantee on the box, but I
guaranteed piece of.
I don't even think I can say that on the air here, but so I think it's going to be a pretty big commit, rankings wise and all that good stuff. And, I think Gamecock fans are going to be happy with it. It's just, and who else does this? I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, man, Beamer's doing something different with the commits and in football, I don't think we've seen it. But who else? Dawn Staley does this too. Dawn Staley will tweet out, a little birdie just flew into the nest, I think, or something like that. And then it may be 2 weeks, 3 weeks before that information makes it out and all that. So I think Beamer's taking a page out of Dawn Staley's playbook here and doing it that way. And that's fine. I like it. I think that because we have Crystal Ball on our network, we run into some issues sometimes to where, because people forget, the Gamecocks aren't the only school recruiting these guys, and if they've committed, they're going to tell the other school and it could leak out from another source. And, we got to kind of protect our sources on that. So I think it gets a little bit tricky in our situation when you see certain trends on the Crystal Ball and we're not really reacting to it. And that's just something that I think as a staff at the Big Spur, we're going to have to, find a way to sort of, whether that's not putting in predictions until we know, whether that's trying to maybe, have a little bit more guts on it. And if it looks like a kid may come to Carolina or something like that, then we can always change it. Maybe doing something like that. So that's been an adjustment for our members and for some things like that. But overall, I kind of love the way he's doing it because, you get to talk about recruiting a lot. And sometimes when the guy commits, everybody just forgets about him, and you don't get to talk about and speculate and all that. Well, I think it's good to speculate. It's a lot of fun. I'd certainly take this on July 14th over what normally is happening, which is, like I said, watching paint dry. So it's I want to be clear that I absolutely personally and professionally am in favor of how Beamer's doing this. I know it's different and an adjustment, but I actually like it as far as, what I do for a living.
Before I even move forward, either one of you, I don't know, JC, if you can see it, you probably can't, but Darren and I can certainly see it. You paying attention to this little conversation going on in our comment section over here about Blind Squirrel Sports' ugly ex-wife?
Yeah.
I didn't
post them up on the screen, but
this is great.
It's like I can only think of one thing as ex-wife. It's like, was she ugly when you married her? I don't recall. It happened in Vegas. And you're just like,
that's a great question by Craig. Was she ugly when you married her?
I'm in favor of more blind squirrel sports.
I like blind squirrel. I would ask him to give us a call sometime.
Yeah,
I like that. I like this guy. Keep it going. You're making me laugh. Especially, by the way, since after last night our cars got broken into. Oh yeah, and then the truck down the street got stolen. But the cops are coming today. I think we have a way to figure out who these idiots are.
Yeah, make sure.
Did you have a catalytic converter stolen like I did like a month ago?
Yeah, what's going on? Maybe they listen to our show. You think they listen to our show?
There's like there's maybe like a part shortage out there these days. You know, everybody's talking about we have shortages of this and that and the other, and so it's like maybe people are thinking, well, you know, we can go back to the old days of where we steal your car parts and take them to the guy at Advance and come here. I'll give you $75 for this. Yeah, I can sell it for $150. But anyway.
That's right. All right, JC. So what you said, you guarantee by tomorrow. Well, no, I'm just kidding. But in the next couple of days, we'll know.
Yeah.
And South Carolina fans, I think, will be very interested to see where that ranking goes. If you're a big ranking guy or gal, right now they're 17th, I believe, in the composite, and that's going to jump. So we'll keep an eye on that. All right, that's one coming in. One is also departing. I think maybe, 30, 45 minutes ago, caught the news that wide receiver Mike Wyman has entered the transfer portal. He was part of the 2020 class, former 4-star wideout from Greensboro, North Carolina. I'm not going to, JC, I'm leaving the floor to you on this. I'm not going to go as far as to say this is shocking or something like that. I think we all probably expected to see a couple of transfers. However, I do probably understand when some Gamecock fans go, my God, last year was a pretty bad year at the wideout position. Now we got a 4-star leaving the program. So in your opinion, what does this mean?
Okay, well, I can't say that they've only lost one guy out of the 2020 class anymore. That's been kind of a talking point of mine. But so now they've lost 2.
You jinxed it.
All right, so Mike Wyman, really, really excellent junior year film at the school he was at in Greensboro. Not so good his senior year, but that team was not good, and they had issues throwing the ball. I mean, it was explained to me as kind of more of a team thing. But then you notice, I think he did enroll early at South Carolina. All the issues they had at wide receiver last year, Jakari Caldwell played, Rico Powers played. They've tried everybody. You didn't really hear Mike Wyman's name. And then all spring, you didn't really hear Mike Wyman's name. And so he had like 30 offers, and so the justifiable 4-star rating was in place. But, just like what happens sometimes, guys don't pan out, and they're not as good as you thought. And it's maybe it wasn't the high school team, and maybe he just kind of hit his ceiling and never got any better. I'll say this about Mike Wyman and his family. They're really good people. You really just hope he goes someplace where he can get on the field and play if that's what he wants to do. As far as, how does it impact South Carolina and their receiving core this year? I can't honestly sit here and tell you that without like my God, the lights come on, this guy's all of a sudden unbelievable and doing everything. I can't tell you that without that kind of deal in the preseason that he was even going to play this year. So, and that's just the truth.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know that it impacts the Gamecocks at all this year, and nothing against him because he is a really good person and good family, all that good stuff. And I hate it, because this is a kid out of North Carolina. Gamecocks need players out of North Carolina to be successful because they got to get recruiting inroads back there and all that good stuff. But, Wyman was just not a guy that when we were discussing receivers and talking to my sources or writing about them or anything, talked about. I know he's working really hard and all that, but there was never a projection for him to play this year. So I think sometimes the writing's on the wall and you go, well, the portal, I can get out and rock and roll and go someplace else, maybe someplace a little less competitive and or smaller, lower level, and get some PT. And I want to play football, so that's what I'm going to do. But it's the only thing that does really, the only impact it has is I can't, like I've been saying, I can't say they've only lost one guy out of the 2020 class anymore. It's now 2. Are
they going to try to? I mean, there's still, JC. I know they're monitoring the transfer portal, but does this light a fire or something? Oh God, we got to go get a wide receiver. Is it anything like that? Okay.
No, I mean this
they
guy.
They have 30 wide receivers basically.
This guy.
Yeah, but can any catch?
Well, the tight ends can.
I mean, this is.
Look, I really want Beamer next week at Media Days to just stand up there and say, "Hello, my name is Shane Beamer. I'm the new head coach at South Carolina. We will use the tight ends this year." Any questions? That's it.
Yeah, I mean, every staff on every staff at every school every year gets asked that. I mean, there's some schools they don't even carry tight ends on their roster because they're air raid or whatever, and it's like they still get asked, "Why don't you throw it to the tight end more?" You know, I mean, that's happened, and I mean, it's like, you know, Hayden Hurst leaves, right? And I did think in 2017. They didn't use Hayden Hurst enough as a receiver because that team, by the time that season was over with Debo out, and you're dependent on Ortre and Shy and Brian Edwards, I thought, you know, this guy is a stud and you don't use him. You're motioning him in and blocking with him and stuff like that. You're not going very – like Spur, you say, you're not going very far, running the ball, not going very far. And he caught 44 passes. So then the next year with who was it? Keel Pollard and Jacob August and 2018 Markaway and those guys, they combined to catch 40, you know, which I thought replacing Hayden Hurst was good. And, you know, now on the bigspur.com, we didn't use the tight ends enough this year. Their production was way down. I'm like, they caught 40 passes. Hurst only caught 44.
That's right.
And 2018 was a team where Shy and Brian Edwards and Debo were all healthy all year. So I'm like, when did you believe that? I mean, did you not watch the Clemson game? Keel Pollard caught like a 67-yard touchdown. I mean, like, you know, did you watch that Missouri game where Scarnecchia hit Markaway over the middle and Todd Ellis was like, he's down to the 25 years old.
And, that was right after he crossed the 55-yard line.
Yeah, the 55-yard line. So, you know, I mean, I'm like,
that's right. He's straight downhill, Darren.
I'm like, did we not? What happened with that there? How did we miss that one? So that's the thing. And but I you know, honestly do think that the tight ends are going to be a big part of
they will be.
Offense, and a lot of it depends on what you call a tight end too. Because Oklahoma, where Beamer came from, they have guys they call tight ends. They look like little running backs. So it's you know, you're talking about Jaheim Bell. He's not going to look like Hayden Hurst, obviously. But
I think you need to call them like flex guys.
These are guys that are going to make a lot of plays. I don't even know that it, you know, 6'8", 240 that EJ Jenkins even look. I mean, you know, I think he looks like more of a bigger wideout, but they're going to try to get those guys matched up and good. I mean, they're not, you know, these guys aren't just completely dumb and, you know, going to go out there and say, all right, we're going to line up 5 wide with a bunch of guys that can't catch or run and, you know, try to chuck it all over the yard. You know, they're going to get their best players out there. And it looks like right now, you know, the tight ends will be. And I want to make clear too, the Mike Wyman decision has nothing to do with this. If Mike Wyman hadn't left, we'd still be talking about the same thing. So just don't think I'm sitting here going,
No.
Now that they've lost Mike Wyman, you know,
we've had the same conversation for a couple of months. I think, JC, I mean, you and your staff started to peel the layers back in the spring, you know, with kind of what was going on. And, you know, I'm speaking from just personally for myself. I mean, the guys that I talk to, it's easy to kind of figure it out once you talk to them. They're like, hey, look, we're just trying to put the best players on the field and find the best matchups. It's really not that complicated. And you're like, oh, well, that might make some sense. You know, I mean, does anybody really give a damn who the hell's standing out wide if they can run and catch? No. Nobody cares. They don't care if you're a tight end or a running back, or they don't care if you're the punter. I mean, if you can run out there and catch the football and, you know, score, nobody cares what position you are.
Yeah. No doubt. I mean, that
doesn't matter.
That's the thing. And I think in this offensive scheme too, guys, a lot of times you're not going to be able to tell. And if you look at it, okay, it's going to be really interesting this year because the SEC, in the SEC, that you've got LSU that hired 2 guys from the Panthers to call the plays. You got Kentucky that hired a guy from the Rams to call the plays. And you got South Carolina with Marcus Satterfield from the Panthers to call the plays. And then you've got Vandy hired a guy from the Cardinals, Cliff Kingsbury, to dial up the plays. And if you look at the offenses, not necessarily Kingsbury, but you look at some of the modern offenses in the NFL, and I'll say this again, I think the last 5 years in the NFL have been more innovative than college football, which is not what normally happens. They got all these guys like H-backs, tight ends, fullbacks, all these guys. They end up getting involved in the offense. It's a matchups game, and so I think that you're going to see it, but you're not necessarily going to know it. When it's happening, you're going to be like, well, that looked like a wide receiver. If you didn't know the personnel and the players, you'd look at it and just go, oh, whatever. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it comes together. Now to South Carolina, would it be nice if Jalen Brooks and DeCarrion Joyner and Amarian Brown and a lot, or Trey Smith and a lot of these guys all of a sudden had big summers and stepped up and they could do all these different – yeah, that'd be great. I mean, and I'm not ruling out any of these guys because some of them have proven they're capable. I mean, you're talking about Brown and Otrey. They both caught 30 balls in a season on the Power 5 level.
What have you heard about Otrey? Have you heard anything lately?
Well,
I hear he's healthy.
Last I heard, with any guy, and I thought he and Rico Powers, when I watched him move around in the spring game, you could tell both of those guys had not played ball in a while. Because one play with Otrey Smith and Rosendo Lewis, both those guys hadn't played. And, it's been since 2017, 2018 since those guys have been on the field. And you could tell it was up and down, up and down. And I think a lot of times when players are coming back after a while in this game, and I think with any sport really, there's a time period where you just got to shake the rust off, man. Yeah. And being healthy for the first time in a long time, that's a bigger deal. It's a bigger deal when you haven't been healthy, and once you get healthy, to then all of a sudden go out and perform than maybe people think. I think a lot of times, we live in this Xbox world where everybody's like, he's a 4-star. He caught 30 passes as a freshman. He's healthy now. Boom, there we go. He's activated and let's go. I mean, even a guy like Marcus Lattimore, who came back and played well after his first knee injury, it took him a little while to shake off the rust. And that's the truth. I mean, that's just that's with any player. And, Marcus wasn't out for 4 years. So that's our 3 years. That's a big difference. So I'm hopeful, and I think the staff is too, that Smith and Amarian Brown and, because Amarian sort of got hurt at the end of they didn't really get a chance to see what all he could do. And he needs to return to form they both need to return to form for their freshman year. If they can get 30 passes caught out of both of those guys, they'll be okay. I mean, because I think DeCarrion Joyner has come on to the point where he's going to be good. I hear good things about Jalen Brooks taking that step this year. You hear some things here and there about Jakari Caldwell and those guys. So I think there's enough there to get them through, and there's always Josh Vann. I think that there's enough there to get them through while they recruit in the back and restock it through the recruiting trail.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. I'll just kind of leave it at this as part of this conversation. A couple of years ago, when Otrey, we had that knee problem, then they kind of discovered it or whatever. Before that, I remember he was dropping a bunch of passes, and I think many thought that this kid's just not any good. That wasn't him. I mean, it just wasn't him. I mean, if the one thing that you could say about Otrey Smith of every characteristic out there needed to be a wide receiver is he could catch. And that was so uncharacteristic. So there was way more going on. Hopefully he's healthy because they need hands, and he's got them. And we'll see what happens. All right, we're going to hit a timeout. JC Shurburtt, owner of thebigspur.com, part 2 coming up. We'll get into some media day stuff. JC, we did speak with the groundhog of college football yesterday. That is Phil Steele. When he pops his head out, we know that it's right around the corner. You know how the groundhog thing works. So we'll get into a couple of conversations we had with him. We still have our It's Time for Carolina Football mini-series part 3 ahead at 1:30 with Keith Allsep. So it's a jam-packed final hour. We hope you'll hang tight right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.
Mike Morgan here for Gamecock Traditions. Baseball is going strong. You'll want to look sharp when you cheer on your Gamecocks. Under Armour, New Era, sideline hats, all with interlocking SC Baseball logo. 18 styles of $10 tees exclusively at Gamecock Traditions. Get on that email list by going to the bottom of the page, enter your email, and always be the first to know about new items as they arrive. You can also add a little Gamecock flair with house signs, garden flags, interior and yard decorations, only at one place, Gamecock Traditions.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risked their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
Bourbon and whiskey drinkers of Charleston, Paddock and Whiskey on James Island and the Terrace Shopping Center on Maybank is your home for the finest and rarest bourbon and whiskey drinks in the Low Country. This is where I hang out. Go meet my friends Reed and Chris and try one of their exclusive barrel pick bourbons. They have the largest private barrel collection in the state, and let their knowledgeable staff recommend your next pour. PaddockandWhiskey.com. Let not your heart be troubled. Paddock and Whiskey is here for your next double. We're all friends around here. Paddock and Whiskey, proud partners of the JB and Goldwater Show.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the Links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Low Country. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The Links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
Hi, I'm Chris Half, Public Information Officer at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. We're home of the mighty USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, Clamagore, and Vietnam experience. And we're a proud partner of the JB and Goldwater Show. We invite you and your family to come see us and enjoy a day on Charleston Harbor. Visit patriotspoint.org for more information. And now, it is my honor to present the National Anthem.
Live, loud, and online.
Final hour, Wednesday afternoon, July the 14th. Welcome back to the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, stokesvw.com. Make sure you've downloaded the JB and Goldwater app. Make sure that you follow us on social media at JB and Goldwater, and then at Sports Media JB, and at Darren Goldwater, and at JC Shurburtt. And make sure you've got a membership to thebigspur.com, and make sure that you eat a cheesesteak today from DB's cheesesteaks.com. Also, make sure that you're drinking Buffalo Trace. It's great bourbon, by the way. Anybody that's wondering. Anything else? Did I miss anything? I did miss something. Yeah, this is Darren. I don't know. We need to make sure that we circle this for next year. We might have missed off the top of the show, even though the Skylar Meade and Trip Couch news came out today. The greatest national day ever on the National Day calendar.
Yesterday was French Fry Day, so what's today?
All right. First of all, I'm not a big fan of this liquor, but there's a lot of people who are. So for them, it only gets better from here, boys and girls. It's National Grand Marnier Day.
All right.
So if you like what they call grandma, go for it. It is National Mac and Cheese Day.
Kraft mac and cheese, just made in ice cream.
God, what is wrong with this guy?
Wasn't in the store. How can you not try it? I mean, it's worth a try, right?
I like it. I just don't.
We've all had Kraft. It's not that.
I just don't consider it's. I don't necessarily. I don't necessarily consider it mac and cheese, though. I'm like, some folks. I mean, look, mac and cheese is like one of those things you can debate with a lot of people. I mean, it's some people like just the shells and the creamy whatever they call it. It's not even cheese. That sauce. Yeah. Some people like the what they get on the buffet, like you used to get at like OCB or Quincy's or something, and then some people like the macaroni pie, like we're used to in the South, where you bake it and you can cut it into squares, but then Kraft is not even mac and cheese in my opinion. That's like you don't open Chef Boyardee and go, I'm gonna have Italian tonight, I mean, that's true. You're like, what do you eat? You turn a leg at the moon, the pizza. I'm gonna have the Italian. I'm gonna have the Chef Boyardee.
I mean, I was about to give another example. There's no point. That's
mac and cheese on the box.
I mean, it's not even like it's good. Don't get me wrong. Like when I was in college, it was a lifesaver. But
it's true.
But it's not mac and cheese, I mean, what if you showed up at Thanksgiving dinner at your grandma's house or something, and she had a big bowl of Kraft mac and cheese?
I'd give her a big old hug and thank
you. Yeah, that's true.
I'll tell you one day, we were sitting around one day up here, and we were in the pool or whatever. It was last summer during the pandemic, and we were like, "What are we gonna eat?" And I was sick of ordering delivery or whatever, so we did what was called the Spartanburg County Buffet, and the Spartanburg County Buffet included Kraft mac and cheese in a big bowl, and some of those buffalo chicken bites that you get out of the bag from the store and you put in the oven, and some potato skins and stuff like that, and not fancy potato skins like you can get from the restaurant. These were like bake them from the box and a microwave pizza. I mean, it was I called it the Spartanburg County Buffet because that's what we ate back in the day in Spartanburg County when I was growing up. But not at holidays, though. I mean, if you walked into a holiday, like I said, and you were like, that's something some people up here would do. Man, we're going to have mac and cheese with the beef sandwiches. I bought the Kraft. It's good. You're like,
moving his pocket.
Oh God, who the hell cares about sports?
Me showing up with a Tony's pizza with these people. Like, hey, we're gonna have pizza. Oh, I'll get Tony's or Tombstone. We're gonna shoot you dead and throw you in Lake Michigan.
The cafeteria, the rectangular cafeteria.
Yeah. It's like, that's good. No, that's different. That's like Kraft mac and cheese. It's very delicious.
Oh.
The square school pizza is unbelievable.
They are good.
Well,
but I don't consider it pizza. Anyway, I'm sorry,
guys. That's not what brings this day home, though.
Oh,
it's not just mac and cheese. It's not just grandma. It is much to what JC was saying earlier about his trip to Myrtle Beach. It is National Nude Day. So, Darren, you can eat all the Kraft mac and cheese you want without one article of clothing on.
I can bathe in it. I'll just fill up the bathtub with some Kraft mac and cheese.
I'm sitting Indian style in his bathtub with a bottle of grandma and a box of Kraft mac.
What's that movie with Matthew McConaughey in it where Terry Bradshaw has the naked room and walks around naked all about like?
Oh, yeah.
I think about it. Every time somebody says the word nude, that vision is in my head, and I'm like,
What movie is that?
Failure to launch.
Failure to launch.
Something like that.
That's what we used to call Michael Flint because he moved home from college and he literally lived at his parents' house for like 6 years. And then all of a sudden he got married and moved out. We're like, what's happened here?
I'd move out too if my dad had a nude room. That would be scary. We played pool and stuff. He's like, you're like, I'm like, oh God. Oh, Lord.
Golly.
Anyway.
What were we planning on talking about?
Probably football, I think.
Oh, yeah. Media days. How do you think the media boys over there in Birmingham would like it if the buffet next week had Kraft mac and cheese? They might. They might with COVID. Who knows?
Yeah, and I dare somebody to complain about that. It's like some media guy. Yeah, probably. What you get at SEC Media Day sometimes is
it'll be Dan Wolken.
They credential everybody, right?
Yeah.
And so you'll get these guys that like it's like a made up Alabama blog, like it's called Crimson and Fierceness or something like that. Like I've been there before, and I don't go anymore. And this was my last year. This guy stands up. Well, I'm John Michael Stevens from Fierceness and Crimson.com, Coach Saban, and I just want to thank you for coming to Alabama. And, you know, my heart's warm and my family's heart's warm. And we even bought a new trailer because we were so happy that you're our coach. And I can't believe this, that you're here and I'm here talking to you. It's just something wants to pinch me or something like that. But what I want to know is this, Coach, why don't you throw the tight ends more? And Saban just answers it. He's like, well, you know, the tight end position's an important part, you know, and you're like, and so you got all these people that are like, they don't even have Twitter accounts or they just have a Twitter account. And they get credentialed, which is fine. I think that's the magic of it and to a certain extent. And they would be the ones to complain about this mac and cheese. They'd have an Instagram account, but I can't believe they're serving this crap here. This ain't even real mac and cheese.
See, and that gets their credential taken away.
And then they're like, and then he gets up and says, but I got to go talk to Coach Saban and we'll ask him why he can't throw the tight ends more.
With wearing an Alabama t-shirt, following him in the hallway.
We'll ask him if he has a naked room.
Yeah. But if Dan Wolken goes this year, JC, he's probably going to ask to be seated around nobody. Could you at least have 6 feet away from the next person?
Yeah, like I put him in a bubble. He's got like a little like a thing like the cars from the Jetsons, you know. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hi, I'm all those guys. They should all have the little Jetsons mobiles and stuff. But it's interesting because it's going to be in Alabama, and I'll be interested to see who, if anybody has a mask on or anything like that. That's always going to be a topic of conversation.
What's the storyline? I mean, we were talking to Gene yesterday, and I think we could probably all agree here. I think Darren, you seemed to agree yesterday. Every media days, Bob Bowlesby already spoke today. Big 12 is going on right now, but I think at every media day session across the country, there's going to be a heavy dose of NIL, playoff, transfer portal. I mean, all these things have really, just popped on us in the since last media days. So we know that all those questions are going to come, and I am anxious to hear some of the responses out there. Guys like Saban, I want to hear some of the things he has to say. But like when it comes to the on the field stuff, I mean I don't know, JC. I know you're a lot like I am, and Darren and I are very similar in the fact that we just want to talk about football. Like we're ready for football, So like, what are the football storylines in the Southeastern Conference?
I mean, that's hard to say. I mean, you look at the West, and I know that, obviously everybody's looking at LSU and thinking, what are they? Are they going to bounce back? Was last year sort of they just lost too many players and made a bad hire at D coordinator. To me, Auburn is very, very intriguing. I don't think anybody knows what to do with Auburn. Like, you look, they got Tank Bigsby back, they got Bo Nix back, you got Mike Bobo down there now, you got Brian Harsin, who's won big at Boise. What's what are they going to be like? Plus, they got a pretty tough schedule. They got to go to Penn State for a non-conference. The Mississippis, I think there's optimism at Mississippi State with once they found a quarterback, how they finished the year. I mean, they beat Missouri 51-32. just wrecked Missouri and then won their bowl game and had a fight afterward. But, Leach is in year 2 in his system. I think everybody's, looking to see if Ole Miss's defense can't improve. I think in the East, if you're a South Carolina fan, you're probably glad that Missouri or Kentucky will be the darlings to behind Georgia and Florida this year. And
I don't think if you're South Carolina, I don't think you want that title.
I don't think you want any kind of expectations on you at all. No. I just I think that the less let them hype you in 2022. That's my thing. Yeah. Let them hype you next year when you're probably after you've had a good year. But look, Missouri's got Connor Bazelak back. I like him as a quarterback. Yeah. Kentucky's retooling their offense. We don't know who the QB is going to be there, but Chris Rodriguez is a really good running back. And they've got tools on defense as well. The SEC East, it's possible too that Florida is not the number 2 team. Now, the question becomes who's going to finish ahead of them, because I don't know. But, Florida's got 5 starters back on offense. You've got a completely different style now with Emory Jones. So that's a good thing. But, Dan Mullen's that's what everybody says. They're like, well, they only got 5 starters back on offense, but Dan Mullen's a heck of a coach. That's always ... Dan Mullen is a heck of a coach. And he is. And you got to give him credit for it. I've undervalued them quite a bit since he got there, and I shouldn't have. And then, there's going to be the most unfair question, I think, in college football based on 2 transfer portal gets of former 5-star guys, one of which probably would not be a 5-star now, one of which talent-wise is, but he's kind of been to 3 different schools now in his short time out of high school, is Georgia. I thought it was completely unfair to Kirby Smart and his players and that staff to sit there and go, it's championship or bust this year. And I'm like, really? Because Darian Kendrick and Eric Gilbert transferred in there? I mean, I'm like, you weren't shooting off these fireworks when what's his name? Tyrese Smith came in from West Virginia. He's an all Big 12 safety. He's done more than Kendrick. Kendrick's very talented, don't get me wrong. But, those guys are going to be the difference maker. I'm like, and I think that's unfair. In a lot of ways, should Georgia contend for the national title this year? Yeah, they're good enough. If they don't, is this championship or bust? No, that's completely unfair in my opinion.
What is it right on for the Dogs to continue? I mean, Darren and I yesterday thought it was very simple. Quarterback. I mean, if you get elite quarterback play, you're in the playoff. If you don't, you don't.
Yeah. I agree, and I think a lot of that, though, guys, also has to do with wide receivers. Eric Gilbert, they said they don't have George Pickens, which I thought was a big play guy waiting to happen, and I'm sorry for the Dogs, but not the Georgia Bulldogs, but for the Dogs here at the house. So that's the deal. Is it's like
Demetrius Robertson left too. He's at Auburn.
Yeah, and he wasn't very good. Let's be honest. He was not as good as people thought. Hopefully, they get a lot out of him at Auburn, but I don't know. But it's like I don't know. I thought JT Daniels was really, really good down the stretch last season. I thought when he came out of high school, he was the best in the country. He graduated early or whatnot, but he got beat out at Southern Cal and all that. But that's a good quarterback play is true, and offense in general, guys. If Georgia is even just better on offense, if they average 30, 35 points a game, their defense and the way they play will be good enough to win most games. Now that Clemson game's awfully intriguing, so we'll see what happens there. But the rest of the schedule sets up well for the Dogs. And, I tend to kind of think Georgia could be a playoff team this year. Do I see them as a national championship team? I don't right now. And that's why I think that's unfair, because I think people are just talking about talent and star ratings and all this other stuff. And, that team does have some question marks. They're not an impenetrable force or whatever. And their secondary, for example, is a question mark. Well, what's going to happen when they play Oklahoma?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, that could be a problematic matchup in a playoff. So we'll see what happens. But I guarantee you that's going to be a narrative that's going to be – it's going to tick me off and I think be completely unfair. And, you know, Georgia fans may get mad at me, but I'm saying that to be fair to their coach and their program. I just don't think national title or bust is where they're at right now. At Alabama, yeah, they're there. Clemson, probably. But Georgia's just not – you know, Georgia makes the playoff this year. I think it'd be a great year.
J.C. Shurburtt, owner of thebigspur.com, 1:20 on a Wednesday afternoon. You know, so Georgia, when you look at, we all know what week 1 is, as you mentioned, is Clemson. Even though I wear the garnet and black, you know, I think it'd be very ridiculous for me to sit here and say I think there's a huge stumbling block awaiting them on September the 18th with Carolina. But then you look down the schedule, they've got to go to Auburn. Obviously, they have Florida. Florida beat the crap out of them last year in the world's largest outdoor cocktail party.
Yeah.
Look, I tell you what, you got to go to Tennessee and in November. Maybe the Vols are clicking by then. Who knows? And then, of course, you finish the season at Georgia Tech, and neither one of those teams are anywhere remotely close to Georgia on a talent level, but getting them at home in November might help. So there's some blocks there that they're going to have to certainly get through. But at the end of the day, you look at that schedule and you think, well, they should navigate it just fine. You could probably pick Georgia to go 11-1, and there's a lot of people that would agree with you. Let me ask you this real quick. I'm not going down the whole. Let me just ask you about 3 games. Florida, did they beat Alabama? As we're picking here in July, did they beat Alabama at home?
No.
Okay.
No, the Gators, no way. No.
Did they win on the road at LSU?
Doubtful.
All right. Did they beat Georgia?
Doubtful.
All right. So there's 3 losses. And they've got and I know people are going to laugh when I say this, but bear with me. Got kind of a really strange week 2 game at South Florida. Those are just strange games. They have to go to Kentucky. Anybody paid attention in the last 4 years? Kentucky's really closed the gap in this series. They do have to go to South Carolina. They do have to go to Missouri in November. And I'm not saying that those are games that they shouldn't win. They should. But games on the road in November can be weird sometimes, JC, as we all know. And so if you're giving them 3 losses and those are all league games, there's every opportunity for somebody else in the East to maybe sneak up and bite them. And 8-4, get you right there behind the dogs, because Georgia's not losing 4 games.
I think it's a big deal that Kentucky, South Carolina, and Missouri are all on the road. I mean, Florida, let's face it, at this point owns Tennessee. They'll beat them when they're both not good or whatever.
I think that's a great point. I'll predict right now they lose one of those 3 games. They lose one.
I mean, and then at LSU, I mean, it's kind of an interesting situation with the Gators because they did schedule at USF down in Tampa. Now that'll be like a Gator home game, but my buddy Bobby Bentley's the pass game coordinator down at USF now. So Bentley ball may be there at Raymond James week 2. And for those of you that were Burns High School fans. So,
dude, what do you think about Emory Jones?
When he came out, I thought he was honestly. I thought he'd be the starter by now because I was looking at it from the standpoint of Dan Mullen's offense at Mississippi State, and sort of when that thing was rolling, you had Dak Prescott, who was a runner and a passer, and I thought Emory could become that guy, and Felipe Franks. I thought Felipe would eventually get beat out. When McElwain was there, though, they recruited Trask and Franks at the same time, and I watched Trask film, and I was like, for what Jim McElwain likes to do on offense, Trask is the better quarterback by far. Now, it's easy to get intrigued by 6'6", 240 rocket arm, but I thought Trask was better. Well, come to find out he was, So Jones has kind of been just waiting there. I think what this does is it takes Mullen's offense back to sort of what it's been over time, power run oriented, running the quarterback a lot. Misdirection, attacking the perimeter with skill, talent. Because, Florida's always going to be one of the fastest teams in the league. They're going to have speed, big playability. Sure. And then you go on the defensive side, and they kept Todd Grantham, so that's kind of the same old, sometimes they're going to hold teams to 3 points and 38 yards, and sometimes it's going to be 40 and 400 or 500. So, that's just kind of that defense. That's the feast or famine D. So it gets really interesting. And it's interesting you brought that up, Jamie, because this is the first time I've really looked at this Florida schedule. And it's like, you've got a lot of brutally tough home games like Bama. And you got Florida State there at the end. But then sort of those middle of the pack Eastern Division games are all on the road with Kentucky, Carolina, and Missouri. That's interesting.
It is. I mean, LSU, it's hard to walk in there and win. We all know that. And hey, look, they win those. They beat the Bamas of the world. They beat the LSUs of the world. They're probably going to be pretty deserving of winning the East because more than likely if they beat those teams, they beat pretty much everybody else.
Sure.
But I just find it like I hate to say this, if you're a Florida fan, but your home schedule outside of Bama sucks. I mean, dude, you've got FAU coming to town. You got Vanderbilt. Oh, you do have Tennessee. Okay. All right. So Alabama.
There's only 3 SEC home games for them, right?
Yeah. You got the traditional rivals, Tennessee and FSU coming in.
But Vanderbilt, Samford. Okay. That's right. Florida State. Okay. So it's not that bad. I was looking at FAU, Vanderbilt, and Samford going, ooh.
It's not great. It's sort of like the Gamecocks, that East Carolina game is
it's not as bad.
Sort of a fun road, not a fun road trip, or like a different kind of little road trip that, South Carolina should have 15,000 at least go to Greenville, North Carolina for that one with ECU. And Florida's going to have probably half the stadium in Tampa just because there's so many Gator fans in Tampa and Orlando that can go. And UCF doesn't have a huge fan base like UCF does, or USF, sorry. And so it's interesting that the Gators do have a really interesting schedule. I think.
All right, final one for you here, JC, and this does pertain strictly to South Carolina. I've asked this question twice this week, and this will make that by virtue of basic math 3. What does Shane Beamer have to gain at media days on Monday? And real quickly, what I mean by that is to give everybody a brief history lesson, a reminder almost of what we went through to get where we are. The national media was so lost in outer space during this whole search. Nobody even understood basically when it was over and Shane Beamer was selected as the head coach. Repeatedly, it was listen to your local sources, listen to your local sources, listen to your local sources. Guys like Shane, guys like JC Shurburtt and the staff at the Big Spur, our friends over at Gamecock Central, our friends at the Post and Courier, the local TV guys, Darren Goldwater, anybody in this state who covers the program gets to peel back the layers, JC. We've been able to see firsthand over the last 6-7 months exactly what's going on in the Midlands. The rest of the country hasn't been able to see that. There's still a lot of national skeptics out there. So I'm going to stop there. What does he have to gain on Monday?
I think he needs to explain some things. First and foremost, the national media does not dislike Shane Beamer a lot. He knows a lot of them.
Oh no, I'm not implying that.
But yeah, no, I mean, and so he's going to get some kind of softball questions, but I think he needs to, if he has a chance, mention what he calls a lazy narrative, and I agree with him about the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator thing, and bring up the fact that there's only outside of Nick Saban, 0 coaches that have been offensive coordinator, defensive coordinators have won the college football playoff. Every one of them otherwise that have won it were never coordinators. Urban Meyer was never a coordinator. Dabo Swinney was never a coordinator. And Coach O was never a coordinator.
It's a great point.
So, I mean, you got to bring that up. That's dumb, in my opinion. Because if you're no head coaching experience, fine. But never been a coordinator, and then you're going to rank Jed Fish ahead of him in the coaching rank. Oh, come on, man. Come on. So I think that's number one. Number two, positive talk about South Carolina, I think is important. And I'm not talking about Derek Mason first year at Vandy, I'm better than Nick Saban and Steve Spurrier talk. I'm talking about the facts that Shane lays out. Okay, just about 5 or 6 years ago, this program was the best in the SEC East. Even though it didn't win the SEC East 3 of those years, you look at the records against the SEC East, South Carolina was the best team in the SEC East for 3 straight years. And everybody says, well, it was down. Well, in 2012, they had 3 top 10 teams, including Carolina in that division, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina. So, that was not true. And so I think setting the record straight and continuing to breathe the positive energy into the room, I think that's important. I mean, everybody's going to want to know what Nick Saban says about NIL and all this other stuff. Everybody's going to want to know, what Mike Leach says, period, or if Lane Kiffin has anything to say about Nick Saban. Those are going to be easy things. But I think for, Shane Beamer, Clark Lee, even Brian Harsin to a certain extent, and who's the other new guy, Josh Heupel. I think for the new guys, it's hey, here's why I'm here. Here's what I want to do. Here's why, this whatever out there is wrong about me, and here's what we're going to do to have a successful program. And I think that's really all he can do. And I think he'll do a good job. I mean, I don't ever rate SEC media days. I would love for somebody to get up there and the media bashes them for having a bad SEC media days. I think that'd be fascinating. The closest I've cut was when Robbie Caldwell was interim at Vandy, and Paul Feinbaum called him a clown, which I thought that was just uncalled for. I mean, the guy was just enthusiastic, but nobody ever really says you have a bad media. I'd like to see what that looks like. Maybe Leach will do that for us this year and just kind of, go off on a tangent and not answer any questions.
Well, I mean, look,
it'll be entertaining. Whatever Leach does won't be bad.
Yeah, and guys, I mean, you mentioned Leach, but let's remember, we didn't have media days last year. We didn't have Lane Kiffin. We didn't have Mike Leach. These guys weren't able to step up there. So, I mean, there's a room full of people, and there are clowns, to use that word, in that room. We all know who they are, cartoonists and things like that show up God knows from where. But for the most part, there are a lot of people there. This is where they finally get their chance of, man, I waited 2 years to talk to this guy. So I think next week's media days are going to be really, really fascinating. I'm looking forward to it. Shane Beamer goes on Monday. Are you sending anybody from the Big Spur?
Yeah, we always send the.
Is Hale McGranahan going?
No, he's we
that
need
guy's
him.
Terrible.
We need him to cover recruiting, but yeah, it's. I think either John Del Bianco, John Whittle. We used to take 2 or 3 people down there, but man, it just got to the point where it's just like, oh God, whatever. Yeah. So so we'll see what happens. We'll see sort of what happens with that. I do think that in today's political climate, you can step in it pretty easy sometimes with some of these guys, but Beamer doesn't really take the bait on things like that. And, I know sometimes people got on Muschamp about this, that, or the other. Oh well, he just kind of brushed it aside, but I don't think we'll see anything like that from Beamer. Beamer's usually got the right answers and stuff like that. But yeah, one of these coaches out there, it won't be Shane, but one of them will probably step in it, have an answer somebody doesn't like, and they get tattooed in the column.
Absolutely, yeah. It's
the world we live in.
It is the world we live in, my friend. People can tweet and say things whatever they want to with their hands, and there's no repercussions for it. Where's Mike Tyson when you need him? That's what I'm saying.
He's getting another face tattoo.
Yeah, he's in Africa. He's buying a tiger somewhere.
Yeah, I love Mike Tyson, by the way.
I love Mike Tyson too. All right, man. On that note, we're gonna let you run. JC, we're getting closer and closer, my friend. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you so much. As always, I want to remind folks that the Big Spurs, if you want to know what the future of Gamecock baseball right now looks like, probably going to want to head to thebigspur.com because John Whittle is all over it.
One minute. Please tell 85 TM, this moron on the text, that I never compared Mike Wyman to T. Higgins or Brian Edwards.
Wait, you can still see that? I thought he's gone.
That's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. I mean, come on, man. I never ever said that.
Yeah,
he's a troll.
He is. Yeah, he got all upset at me earlier for calling him out when he was calling Skylar Meade a loser. He's one of those guys where I can say what I want, but you don't say anything bad about me. I'm gonna tell my mommy.
You can go tell his mom.
I
just hate it when people just make stuff up.
I know.
I mean, I think when Mike Wyman was recruited, I was still on I'm not giving any player comparisons. T. Higgins. Come on, man.
Dude, you don't have to say anything.
The benefit of today's show, and really him, is I now have learned that I can put viewers in time out. If you're being bad, you can face the court. And I can totally. So I've now discovered that, and he's gone.
I think he's probably one of those, there's, I think, one Clemson fan that, creates multiple accounts and tweets at me and my staff at the Big Spur all the time. We just block them automatically. I'll monitor Twitter for that guy.
I don't mind people being critical. I mind when you're just blatantly lying. Like, you're lying.
Yeah.
I forget what his name, Timmy or something, said earlier. I think it's Timmy. Yeah, he said earlier something well, Mark Kingston made a good decision to encourage him to look around. That's not what happened. You're lying. You're just saying something that's not true. So, anyways. All right, JC, we're going to let you run on that note. But thanks again, my brother. We'll be monitoring the Big Spur for Gamecock baseball stuff and the latest South Carolina recruit set to reveal himself soon, hopefully in the next day or two, and they'll have it all right there. Thanks, bud.
All right, thanks, guys.
Hey, you look good, man. Keep up the great work.
Appreciate it.
See you. There you go, JC Shurburtt. All right, so we have Keith Allsep as part of the all-new mini-series. It's time for Carolina football Part 3. Instead of going to break, we're just going to plug him right in here because he has been kind enough to wait on his dear pal, JC Shurburtt, to finish mumbling and rambling about cheesesteaks in Chicago, Illinois. So we go from Chicago to Texas. Keith, I hadn't talked to you since before the 4th, so happy 4th of July, happy closer to football season, and welcome aboard. What's up, brother?
Hey, guys. Great to be with you, and interesting discussion on macaroni and cheese for sure. I guess I can, leave Martha Stewart behind and just go to the JC Power Hour for comedy, food, fashion, etc. But it's always great to be with you guys. And so right off the bat, I got to take exception with JC's take on Georgia. Okay. Kirby Smart has been the head football coach at Georgia since 2016. He and Will Muschamp took their jobs. Hell, Ray Tanner was in Kirby Smart's living room getting ready to sign him to be the head football coach at South Carolina when Georgia called and snatched the rug out from under their feet. They fired a guy in Mark Richt that was a great guy. And not only that, he was the head coach there for 15 years. And you know how many games he won? 151 games. I'm not good in math. I probably couldn't spell calculus, but that's 10 wins a year. Okay. They didn't fire him and usher in Kirby Smart as the John the Baptist or Jesus Christ or whatever the hell he was supposed to be to do the same thing Mark Richt's done, which is basically what he's done. And so now this is year 6 for him. He's got JT Daniels. They've recruited better than anybody in America, except maybe Alabama, according to the so-called experts at Rivals, 24/7, ESPN, et al. Okay. And so he shouldn't get kudos for going to the college football playoff. His job is to go to the college football playoff. It's not to go 10-2. It's not to get the hell beat out of you by Dan Mullen in Jacksonville last year. It's not to do the same thing that Mark Richt did.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, with Eric Gilbert and other massive tight end they flew in from Las Vegas on a private jet who's 6'8", and the running backs and everybody else and the all-star staff that they have and the resources they have at Georgia, 10-2 is not cutting it in year 6. Okay. It's college football playoff. It's not go to LSU and stub your toe. It's not get beat by Florida and not win the East. It's college football playoff. And if it's not, he ought to be on the hot seat because they fired a guy who's a much better dude than him and who, by the way, has much better hair than him. Okay.
And recently diagnosed with Parkinson's disease.
Yeah.
But he'll be back on the ACC network, though. I saw that.
Yes. And so, he should be doing better than what Mark Richt did because that's why they brought him there, not to do the same thing. And so
I think, Keith, because I just pulled up his record, we've done this comparison before through 5 years. And you have to remember, right, that last year was a shortened year, but through 5 years, Kirby's record at 52-14, if I recall, is one game less win total than what Mark's was.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was like right there.
Wasn't Mark like 53-15 or something?
All right, and so Mark Richt won the SEC, like his second year there, right? David Green, Pollock, all of them. They would have gone to the college football playoff if there had been one that year.
Yeah.
There just wasn't one.
For sure.
Okay? And so, and he's recruited even better than Mark Richt, according to the experts. And so to me,
that's true.
I'm just not at the same place as JC because one wide receiver got hurt. Okay. At South Carolina, if your best wide receiver gets hurt, when they had the best wide receiver, like when Debo got hurt against Kentucky, okay, that was a big blow. If you're Georgia, one guy going down should not be considered taking you out of contention for the college football playoff, unless it's a 5-star quarterback, because that is the most important position.
Let me ask you this question. You ready? Don't fall backwards and hit your head on the wall or anything like that. If it guaranteed South Carolina a win in week 3 against Georgia, would you be okay with Clemson also beating Georgia in week 1? If Clemson beats them, that means South Carolina is going to beat them. That's the only guarantee you get. Would you take it?
Absolutely, because if you're Shane Beamer, you can't worry about what Clemson is doing, what Alabama is doing, what LSU is doing, really even what Georgia and Florida are doing. If you're Shane Beamer and you look at the momentum of the programs that have first or second year head coaches right now, no program in that category has more momentum in recruiting, than South Carolina. I mean, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Auburn, South Carolina, all of those are guys in year 2 or year 1, and nobody has had a summer like the summer of Shane. I mean,
it's not over.
Right. It's not over.
People know it's not over.
We know, there's going to be another one. I think the last time I was on, we thought it was going to be somebody different than it was on the welcome home that turned out to be Emory Floyd, who, by the way, will probably be the fastest player on the team as soon as he arrives, 10.48, 100 meters at 6'1", 170. But, of course, immediately his ranking went down. He got the reverse bulldog bump, because he didn't,
I meant to ask JC about that. I forgot to ask him that question.
Yeah. It's wondrous how that works. It wasn't even time for an update, and his ranking went down. But at any rate, I doubt Shane Beamer and Torian Gray really give, 2
blanks.
Yeah, 2 cents for that.
So I want to go back to what I asked you. I was having fun with the question and hypothetical. By the way, if you're just tuning in, this is the JB and Goldwater show. But it's part 3 of our It's Time for Carolina Football miniseries. with Keith Allsep, who hosts the best podcast out there for South Carolina, by the way, the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast. But I want to, because it is realistic that those things you see on the screen right there, if you head to jbandgoldwatershow.com, you can purchase all of our It's Time for Carolina football stuff and all of our JB and Goldwater stuff. But so obviously Clemson can beat Georgia. Matter of fact, if I had to pick today, I'm picking Clemson to beat Georgia, that game in Charlotte. Now, I'll also say this. This isn't coming from that, well, I think this is really going to happen. I just don't want to get in trouble because I've always been, well, let's kind of see what happens. I'm not big into it's going to happen. I'm going to pick this upset and that upset. But 2 years ago, going into Athens, I did pick that upset. Okay? And here's why, Keith. I picked that upset because I thought, as bad as Carolina was that year, for whatever reason, that matchup was really good. If you remember it, it was going to be kind of a low and slow banging around type game. And I just thought, I don't know, there's something there. I'm going to go with Carolina to pull this thing off. And I truly meant that and believed it, and they did it. So I don't think that's going to be the case this year where this game actually sets up that way. But they also, that's like the one thing from the Muschamp era some of these guys can hang on to and say, hey, we went to Athens and won. We could do this again. And with all the momentum, you don't want to be unfair to them and discount it. So who knows? But if they win it, by the way, they're 3-0 and probably somewhere in the top 20 or top 15. It's okay. It's okay to dream in July, isn't it?
It is. And I mean, maybe they'll smoke cigars in the locker room again and they'll go break off twigs of the hedges, and, PETA and the plant police will all raise hell about it on Twitter.
That's right. Oh, they were all, who was it that had it in his mouth? Was that Kyle Markway?
I believe it was.
That's a great photo.
Yeah. I think America, recognized, Javon Kinlaw for what he was. He made a lot of money that day because 10 stars worth of offensive linemen most every play, and Kobe Smith had a big game. Of course, that's the game that convinced Israel Mukuamu he was a first-round corner instead of probably a safety because he had 3 interceptions.
And two of those were Kinlaw's.
It convinced him.
He made a nice grab on that ball down the side.
No doubt on the last one. I thought he probably ought to be moved to wide receiver after that. But
looking back,
the most magnificent thing is, there's always that picture on Twitter of Jake Fromm's mom in the bikini at the beach. So I still love Jake Fromm.
Is that still floating around? That photo's still out there?
It's gotta be.
I remember seeing it. I think we all, if you saw it, will remember seeing it.
There's a line from The Hangover that matches perfectly for that when they're in the police car. So,
Keith Allsep, 1:48 on this Wednesday afternoon. All right, Keith, did you read the column that came out yesterday in The Athletic by Grace Rayner and Josh Kendall about recruiting in South Carolina?
No, I did not read it. I have not read it as of yet.
If you get a chance, I want you to read it. It's really good. I think there was 10, Darren, 9 or 10 coaches.
There 9 or 10. It's part of the Athletic series right now. They're doing it around the country. The first one I read was somewhere in Ohio. There's another one I still haven't read yet about the state of Pennsylvania, but this one was good, comparing Clemson and South Carolina, specifically recruiting this state and different styles. It was very informative.
But not just current.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, many of these coaches, they selected, I think one of them is just a quarterback's coach, and I might be able to guess who that is. But the other ones, some of them have been coaching 25, 30 years, some of them 5 or 10 years, whatever. So some can go as far back, Keith, as Coach Holtz, and even a little bit before that. Most of it's pretty much from that era on over the last 20 years or so. And here's the thing that I'm going to say this, kind of leave it to you, because you know a lot of guys who've coached football at both at Clemson and South Carolina, still new and no. I know much more on the Gamecock side, but certainly have some guys I could reference up there as well. And it's all personal preference. I mean, you were a high school coach, Keith. I mean, you've dealt with 1,000 coaches, college coaches come knocking on your door, and everybody's a little bit different. Everybody's going to feel a little bit differently about this guy and that guy. But I think, and everybody had something different to say. You know, this was my favorite coach. This was my favorite coach. But I'll tell you what, you want to know what was also in there? There were two things that really stuck out to me. One, the rivalry itself. Every coach said, nobody from Clemson or Carolina has ever walked in my door and just beat up on the other one. By the way, these were all anonymous. The other one said, I loved Will Muschamp. And there was 4 or 5 of those, Darren. We loved Will Muschamp. And, you know, the more I started
there was more on the other side, though. There was more, and at least in terms of how he recruited, there was a lot more negative than positive for Muschamp.
But it was about the staff. It wasn't about him personally. It was about – there might have been a guy here or there who didn't prefer Will, but overwhelmingly, Will Muschamp was the one thing that they actually did enjoy. A lot of his staff, it appeared, they just didn't do a damn thing, and that's clearly changed.
I mean, I could name some names on that of guys that
absolutely
rubbed high school coaches the wrong way, or just didn't go to their schools or dig in like a, you know, Ellis Johnson, you know, or like a Miles Aldridge or Tommy West. I got this little black book.
Oh no.
Okay. So it's for business. And I make notes of every interaction with physicians, staff names, anniversaries, birthdays. Man, Miles Aldridge had a black book that went back 20-something years. He knew the janitors at the high school. He knew when their kids were born, where they went to, if they went to college, when they got married, the grandkids. He knew everything, every detail. And so I'd be like, how do you memorize all these? Like, I don't. I just sit out in the car for about 15 minutes and go over all of that stuff, and then walk in and then act like the guy's my best friend, but very detail oriented. And, you know, I think too many guys got away from that, you know, like Lance Thompson and Travaris Robinson and Brian McClendon. And I mean, we just saw another, you know, Brian McClendon bust at wide receivers in the portal. I mean, look, dude, if you can't play wide receiver at South Carolina right now, you can't play wide receiver. Sorry.
Well, that's
and Mike Wyman's a nice kid, nice family,
great kid,
but just not good enough. I mean, that's the bottom line. If you're on scholarship at South Carolina as a wide receiver and you're not playing a lot, you're just not very good. That's the bottom line.
You know, Keith, it's become, I think, more apparent to me, and maybe I'm off here, and if you disagree, that's why I've got you on. But it's become more apparent to me that the difference that we're beginning to see is that Will Muschamp, not all of them, but a large majority of the quote home runs that we saw that he had hired on his staff, guys who were national coaches of the year and things like that, all the names you just mentioned and others, didn't know how to recruit to South Carolina. They knew how to recruit to the Blue Buds, but they didn't know how to bring them in.
They didn't care to recruit.
Yeah. But I think Will, I'm giving him some credit here. I know people don't like hearing it when you give Will Muschamp credit. Will Muschamp did care to recruit. And when he got on somebody, he didn't miss on him. He rarely missed. And I think that's one of the reasons why he wanted to have a hand in every single prospect out there, because some of his guys, they just couldn't do. They could coach on the field, but they couldn't get it done on the recruiting trail.
Look, I mean, he basically had to take over the defensive line recruiting. I mean, the reason you beat Clemson on Zach Pickens, and Clemson did trash South Carolina and Will Muschamp, and that's why, you know, Skeletor and the Power Rangers were in attendance at the spring game when Zach Pickens just, you know, spontaneously decided to announce for South Carolina. There was nothing spontaneous about that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Jordan Birch, Boogie Huntley, J.J. Enigbare, all these guys, that you could name. Will Muschamp was personally involved with them. Mo Kaba, who was a highly regarded linebacker. He felt like he had to take it over. I mean, gosh, if the guy would have just knew how to recruit wide receivers,
and how to release some of the game day stuff and just let people do their deal. Because I say this a lot, Keith, and I mean it when I say this. I think some people maybe hear it and understand it differently. I'm not saying that a coaching change wasn't necessary or anything like that. All I'm saying is I respect Will Muschamp, and I appreciate what he did and what he tried to do. It didn't work. But I appreciate what he did and what he was trying to accomplish here. And, what we're seeing, Shane has surrounded himself. Will had a couple of these guys, but Shane has surrounded himself with guys that just understand this program. And as everybody says that quote want to be here. There's a huge difference. When you hear that, it's not just gossip. I mean, there's so much truth in that. It's crazy.
I mean, I think Will always felt like he had to be the smartest guy in the room and couldn't really accept where his faults were. And so he brought too many people that had been responsible for him getting fired at Florida. And look, I had nothing against Coleman Hutzler, but I mean, Will Muschamp basically got fired because they lost to South Carolina in overtime, and they lost, and they had a lead because special teams gave up 2 blocked kicks in the fourth quarter.
Right.
They had more injuries in that 4-8 year that he had than Brad Loing told me he had ever, like, over twice as many as he had ever been associated with, but he had to bring Jeff Dillman. I mean, he had to bring Kurt Roper, and then he had to promote Travaris Robinson and Brian McClendon, which turned out to be, career-ending moves.
Terrible decisions.
Yes. I mean, he had changed the narrative, and I'm not trying to take up for the guy because clearly a change was needed. He had his chance. He had changed the national narrative on Will Muschamp. Okay, Bianchi, Dooley, the guys that had followed him at Florida, Dennis Dodd, the national guys all said, man, maybe it was just Will Muschamp wasn't a great fit at Florida, but he's a great fit at South Carolina. I mean, the national press was gushing over him after the all gas, no brakes, and it turned out to be not much gas and a lot of brakes and flat tires.
I was about to say the gas they didn't have any gas.
The engine just dropped out.
It was, and we're going to get more into this over the next couple of weeks, Keith, and probably, as a matter of fact, maybe even a little bit next week. But I think that there's a lot of fans. We only have about less than a minute left here. I think there's a lot of fans and there's a lot of national people, as you mentioned, who don't follow it as closely as Keith Allsep or Darren or I or anybody that we have around here, that look at what happened, especially halfway through last year, and they go, man, they got a long ways to go. They were horrible. I don't think it's that bad. And I know for a fact that Shane doesn't think it's that bad. I know that for a fact, as a matter of fact. So it's probably better than people think it is. But it's not where anybody wants it to be. But what you saw halfway through last year, they're not that bad, Keith. I'll go out on that limb. They're not that bad.
Well, I mean, it's a great Lou Holtzism because it's true. Things are never as good as they seem. Things are never as bad as they seem. The reality is somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
And I've said this. I think if Shane Beamer is able to win early at South Carolina, and I mean win 6 games, either year 1 or year 2, get to a bowl game, I think he's got Will Muschamp to thank a lot for that because of Will Muschamp's final full recruiting class, which was his best recruiting class with, Marshawn Lloyd, Birch, Boogie, Luke Doty, all the linemen, some of them not very highly touted, like a Trey Jones, like a Tyshawn Wanamaker, a Mo Kaba, who was highly touted, Cam Smith. Now, some of those guys have left, like Johnny Dixon and Shiloh Sanders and Jamie Robinson, and that really hurts. But everywhere really except secondary and wide receiver, there are players at South Carolina.
Got to be developed, no question, but I agree with you. They recruited guys in the trenches, and you're going to need them to win in this league. You're always winning if you listen to the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast hosted by that guy, Keith Allsep. What are you doing the next couple of days? Who do you have on there? What are you pitching to the folks? What are you getting us juiced up for football season with?
So what I want to say is I do have Josh Pate coming later this week, but if you're a VIP patron, we do a town hall meeting Tuesday evenings. It's a Zoom call. Usually they last night's was like an hour and 40 minutes. We usually cut it off early and have overtime for just the people that are on the call. We had former Gamecock Jerry Inman, who is a VIP patron of the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast.
Yeah.
He was able to be on as he was at bringing his 12-year-old son home from track practice, and he chimed in and talked for we had about a 10 or 15 minute conversation about recruiting and what's going on in the Northeast. And really, I'd said how, criminal I thought it was since the 1970s. South Carolina had always done well in the Northeast. George Rogers doesn't win the Heisman without a guy named George Schechterly from Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania, at left tackle. Okay. Mm-hmm. And, after Rich Bisaccia left, they just, and you had Steve Tannehill. Why the hell would you not get 2 or 3 more players a year from Pennsylvania when you got Steve Tannehill there? And they just have never done it. And now Pete Limbo, I'm going to have Ben Briner on tonight it'll be a later Wednesday show. He covered Pete Limbo at Ball State, and so he's got unique perspective. So that's coming up. But, really the annual VIP is the greatest, bang for your buck, the only daily Gamecock podcast. And our VIP town halls, that's really where it's at. People, they love these things. It's been great. I've made so many friends. I can't wait for the Kentucky weekend. We're going to have a social. I'm coming out for that. We're going to have a Locked on the Gamecocks podcast social. Certainly you guys are welcome to drop by, and we're trying to, it's kind of in the early stages, but it's being planned for that weekend. But just having a guy like Jerry Inman, who was a great player and who was the number 1 wide receiver in the state of Virginia, and he talked about going to visit Virginia Tech in early January, and it was an ice storm. Then he went to visit South Carolina, and when he got off the plane, he had to take his winter coat off because it was 65 degrees in Columbia. And the next weekend he went to Maryland, and it was another ice storm. And so, there's a lot of, he was just backing up the validity of why South Carolina should be an attractive option for kids from the Northeast. And it was really great coming from a former player and somebody that's went through the process and that was highly recruited versus just me saying it, or, even JC saying it.
Yeah.
As much, street cred as JC has, especially now that he's, banging, on the south side of Chicago. So
now that he walks his turtles down the street on a leash.
Right.
Guy's gotten really weird since
moving
to the Midwest.
And Red, who's notorious, by the way.
Especially,
he's having problems, though. Red is wanting to become gang affiliated, and he's trying to pull Red out of that world. So
JC has to pull for the Sox up there. I hear Red wants to be a Cubbies fan, so we'll see how that works out. The best endorsements are those of your audience, and you just got one from Clint. The town halls are great. So, Keith, on that note, we'll let you run, my friend. It's part 3 of a 10-part miniseries. It's time for Carolina football. You can buy T-shirts like this and much, much more on our website, jbandgoldwatershow.com. There's also plenty of stuff for our program itself, like that pretty sweet little mug there that fits plenty of bourbon in it. Head to jbandgoldwatershow.com. Keith, have a wonderful week, my friend. Great to see you. We're getting closer and closer. Can't wait.
Yeah, SEC Media Days on Monday. I think SEC. I think Big 12 Media Days kicked off today. So, hey, boys, it's officially talking season.
Talking season. This, that, and the other. Yeah. I think we'll be talking plenty about Media Days next Wednesday. So we know you'll be following along, and we'll get you then.
All right. Have a great day, guys.
Yes, sir. There you go. Keith Allsep, host of the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast. It is fantastic. I've been honored to be on there quite a few times. We'll keep our eyes on the news for the future of Gamecock baseball, who replaces both Skylar Meade and Trip Couch. They're headed off. Skylar, now a head coach at Troy University. Very proud of him. Good stuff today from JC and Keith as well. And thanks to John Whittle for jumping in earlier. Thanks to Darren Goldwater, as always.
Thank you.
Thanks to all of you. Tomorrow at noon, we're back. We got a lot more to get to. Get into baseball tomorrow as well. And yeah, the Open Championship starts at 4 in the morning. Can't wait. It's gonna be great, man.
John Robb.
They'll be wrapping up round 1 when we hop on tomorrow. Until then, JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen. We'll see you tomorrow at noon.